What's up, money nerds? The million-dollar question everyone seems to have is, how long will it actually take to become a millionaire? That's why it's called the million-dollar question. Duh. Because if you wanted to know how to become a 100,000-aire, then it would be called the $100,000 question. Don't overthink it, you weirdos. But the amount of time that it takes to become a millionaire is less important than the amount of times, though. Unlike me, you're probably a pretty sane person, so that might not make sense to you. So give me a minute and I'll explain. The amount of time does matter to an extent, especially if you're pursuing financial independence or early retirement. But while you're in the process of building up your investments, it's not as important. If I told you that you could be a millionaire in 200 years, then you'd probably roll your eyes at me just like my one ex-girlfriend did when I started to tell her about my interest in as a form of therapy. She didn't talk to me after that conversation. To be honest, I wasn't surprised because not everybody understands, but give it 10 years and you'll know what I'm talking about. That's besides the point though. You see, if I gave you 200 years to save up $1 million, then all you'd have to do is set aside $5,000 per year or $416 per month for 200 years. Now that sounds pretty simple to me, but unless your brain gets downloaded onto a computer and at that point money is pointless to you, you don't have time to wait 200 years, which is why it's more important to focus on the things that will reduce those 200 years. How much, how often, and the type of return on your money. How long is just a byproduct of your actions today. It's a lagging indicator of your choices leading up to the amount of years until you become a millionaire. I'm being semi-facetious about that 200 years though, because naturally, the more time that you give yourself, the easier it's going to be to hit $1 million. Just like someone pursuing a normal retirement age has it a lot easier than someone pursuing an early retirement. Those annoying financial independence and early retirement people are such nerdy overachievers. Here's a breakdown of the amount of time that it takes to reach $1 million if we're talking about it in terms of investing in retirement accounts. It's a simple math equation based on the amount you're putting in and the returns you're expecting. My single people out there have to be a little bit more diligent since there's only going to be one source of income. Hopefully you have more than that, but realistically most people have one, and no one there to kind of hold you accountable for your actions. On the other hand though, the couples out there have to be careful as well because both parties, they need to be working to contribute to their investments and have to be on the same page as well at all times. Now, not being on the same page can easily extend the amount of time it takes to hit $1 million by a few more years. I don't think one has it easier over the other. Both just have different types of hurdles to jump over to succeed at growing their money to $1 million. I'm a firm believer that how much you can set aside is quite possibly the biggest deciding factor in hitting the amount that you want to be invested to achieve financial independence one day. My thought process is to stuff away as much as you can as early as you can right now, because who the heck knows what your life is going to look like and if you can even invest as much over the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So many people are wasting a ton of time screwing around with eking out an extra 1% return on their money, when in reality, that same person would be better served trying to figure out how to get more money to stuff into their investment accounts. If you're enjoying this video so far, please do me a huge favor and Hulk smash that thumbs up button. Your rate of return, of course, matters to an extent, but what's more important is how much. If you earn a return of, we'll say 10% over 10 years, and you only invested $50 per month, then you'd have $9,562 with a gain of $3,562. Not too shabby, and I'd be happy with that. But if you earn 6% over 10 years and invest $100 per month, then you'd end up with $15,816 with a gain of $3,816, which is even better than the 10% return you earned from investing $50 less. Being able to invest more cash is kind of like a little hack that reduces the importance of needing to hit a higher return on your investments for them to grow. There is a time when your rate of return on investments is extremely important, but we'll talk about that in a minute, so hang on, you impatient weirdos. How much you have available to invest all comes down to how much you're saving. To simplify it, your income versus your expenses, or to put it in financial independence terms, your savings rate. In this consumer-minded world we live in today, financial success is usually measured by how many things and how expensive of things people have, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because the only thing that consumption measures is how much money you're spending, or in reality, wasting on things that you most likely don't need. It has nothing to do with wealth at all. I've met so many people who used to be quote unquote rich because they had a high income and spent a buttload of money that are now flat broke and can't afford basic food, housing, and transportation. If you've never met anybody like this, it's really, really sad. There's no correlation between how much someone spends and whether or not they're wealthy. Being rich is for suckers, being wealthy is for successful people. It's all about what you make and what you keep. Unfortunately, when people do smart things with their money, it's less obvious because their life to the outside world doesn't really change at all. I save and invest 83% of my income as just an average dude, but you and the other people around me would have zero clue unless I told you that, because that success is invisible to the outside world. I'll throw the video that I made on how I save and invest 83% of my income down in the description and at the end of this video if you want to check out some of my tips and tricks. Just like with building any meaningful habit, the amount of times is very important to how long it'll take you to become a millionaire as well. Asking the question, how long does it take to form a habit, is the wrong way to look at it. Instead, the more accurate question is, how many times do I have to do this before it becomes a habit? Investing on a regular basis is like building a habit. The more that you do it, the faster it becomes a normal routine in your life. Every time that you click the deposit button on your investment account, you're subconsciously casting a vote towards becoming someone who invests on a consistent basis, which in turn will help you make your first $1 million a lot faster. Instead of having to choose whether or not you're going to invest this month, you'll automatically default to investing without even thinking twice, no matter what the stock market is doing. My friend recently shared an analysis someone did on 3 different people who invested in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund over a 41-year period, and the results absolutely blew my mind. I have zero clue where he got it, and he hasn't gotten back to me at the time of recording this video, so I apologize for not knowing who to give credit for the work. 3 people invested the exact same amount over that 41-year time period. The first person bought at the absolute worst time every single time. So basically when the stock market was at its highest and what some would call expensive. The second person only invested on the absolute best days. So when the stock market was at its cheapest or quote unquote on sale. And the third person auto invested every single month no matter what the stock market was doing. Lo and behold, the person who ignored the news, ignored the stock price, didn't care if there was a recent financial crisis, a health crisis, what people were saying on YouTube, ended up with almost $500,000 more than the person who only invested when the stock market was at its lowest point, aka on sale. Consistency and how often is more important than dumb luck and perfect timing. Don't be afraid to deposit money into your investment account multiple times per month if you end up having a little extra cash that you didn't plan for at the end of the month. It's not going to be out there earning you any additional money if it's lying around and you don't have anything better to do with it.
Dude, I invested in Penn National Gaming stock and it had a return of 103%.
Cool story, bro. How much did you invest?
$6.
Rate of return is important to the extent that you want it to be higher than what you'd get from a savings account, but if it keeps up with the total stock market, then you're perfectly fine. That's because when you're in the wealth accumulation phase of building up $1 million portfolio, the return is less important than the amount that you're actually putting in. I'd say that your rate of return is more important once the time comes where you need to live off of those investments, since you are usually not investing additional money at the same rate as you were before when you were working. This is what we call the wealth preservation stage of investing. A personal goal for everyone should be to set yourself up to where you're always earning just a little bit of income, or you're at least able to hypothetically flip on a switch and earn income if you need. This could be through some sort of real estate investing, keeping up on profitable skills that you have, various side hustles, or even being physically capable of heading out into the real world to do some part-time work for some extra cash if you need it. I don't want to completely discount the time involved with getting yourself to $1 million because it does play a role here, but I think it plays a psychological role more than anything. The shorter amount of time that you give yourself, the more money you're going to have to set aside on a regular basis. This is something anyone pursuing financial independence or early retirement is very aware of. Because those people want to make work optional sooner, they're going to need to start pulling money from their investment account sooner. This means all of their money isn't going to stay invested and growing from compound interest at the same rate as someone pursuing the average retirement age who has more time to grow their money without having to live off of it for a little while. So the fastest way to get to that $1 million is to accumulate as much money as possible as quickly as possible. Setting up a narrow goalpost for yourself by saying, I want to hit $1 million within 10 years is naturally going to force you to change how you think about everything. I actually like this as a way to get yourself thinking outside of the box when it comes to earning money and how you interact with that money that you do earn. It's a good way to think a little bit more crazy than you normally would. A good thought experiment to help you out with this is to ask yourself, if I only had X amount of time to do Y, then how would I do it? Once you determine that, you'd write down all of the possibilities and ignore any and all limitations, even the ones that you think sound super crazy. Let's try it for this example of wanting to get to $1 million. So we would say, if I only had 5 years to become a millionaire, then how would I do it? Now we're gonna start listing off possibilities, even the ones that sound super crazy. Number 1, I'd buy a bunch of $1 million lottery tickets. Number 2, I would create a product and sell it for $50 per person to 20,000 people. Number 3, I'd walk up to 1 million people and ask each of them for $1. Number 4, I'd swim across the ocean, make a YouTube series out of it, and find 10 companies to sponsor me for $100,000 each. You'd of course want to do a whole bunch more, but after you pick one, then start figuring out how to do it. Make sure to Hulk smash that thumbs up button. Check out the description for 1 free stock worth up to $200 on Robinhood when you deposit money into your account, as well as more resources and playlists to help out with all of your personal finance and investing needs. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Done.